This is not about looking backwards. This is about finding the best way forwards.
It's really rewarding to be able to help people find quality of life again when perhaps they've given up.
Baroness Finlay, thank you so much for giving us this opportunity to get to know you a bit better. I want to start with your childhood. Who were you when you were a child and what was it like?
Well, I guess I was just an ordinary child, and we lived in a semi-detached house out in New Malden, and there was a lot of illness during my childhood. But as a child, I thought that was normal. So when I was 3, I was in hospital for 3 months. And I just thought it was normal. I thought that you went through childhood and people were ill and died around you.
So seeing that so many people around you needed care, is that what inspired you to go into medicine? How soon did you know that that's what you wanted to do?
When I was 3, when I'd been in hospital, I wanted to be a doctor because I wanted to make things better. And that never wavered. So as I grew up, I think I had that scientific questioning. And my mum was great. She bought a heart from the butcher's, and I think it was an ox heart, and we cut it up in the kitchen. And then my parents had a microscope, and Mum would prick her finger and put blood on a microscope slide, and then I could see the blood cells.
So that inquisitiveness that you have, that kind of questioning, how when you then did become a doctor and you moved through your career, were you still driven by that need to ask questions and see if you could change things?
I think I was. Actually, what then I found was I was angry at seeing bad care, and I think that's what drove me through into the career I've had. So I did some time in paediatrics and I absolutely loved it, but I was looking after desperately sick children. And then when I did anaesthetics, I learned all about pain relief, but I didn't enjoy it because the patients were asleep most of the time and I liked talking with people. And then I was a GP and saw lots of things, but realised if I was going to make a difference, I had to actually jump into what was the developing world of hospice.
So tell me about working in palliative care.
Well, when I started out, of course, there wasn't even a specialty of palliative care, palliative medicine. So I was involved in creating it as a specialty. I went to work at the hospice and set it up, but I was the only doctor, so I was on 24/7. But gradually things developed. And I always had the feeling, if I could change things in Cardiff, if I could make things better there, it would be like the ripples on the pond. And then we could make things better across Wales. And if we could do that, we could do it across the UK. And if we could do that, we could do it across the world. So this is my office. This is the team hub for palliative care at Velindre Cancer Centre. And it was here on this table that we worked out the funding formula for the whole of Wales in 2008. And we've rolled that out across Wales and it has lasted. And we were the first country, and I think still the only country in the world to have really achieved that. So, Helen, how do you think that you were prepared for COVID, given the service that we'd set up already?
I think the service we'd already set up well prepared us for the challenges of COVID, with 7/7 working, set us up to be very proactive, integrate with the other services, the oncology services. We also, in palliative care, work with managing uncertainty, not only in terms of the physical care we give and managing physical symptoms, but managing quality of life.
Yes, it's really important to see people early, rather than them being weeks or months with distress that hasn't been addressed, and help them and their families right early on and work with our other colleagues.
I agree. If we wait for people to refer to us, sometimes the moment is lost and, as you say, the problems mount up. It's the listening to the patient, finding out what the problems are. They're not always the immediate problems that are presented to you. And we listen, we give them time, and we look not only at the physical aspects, but the quality of their life, and perhaps explore the parts of their journey that have been unspoken or unsaid, and the things that they're finding very difficult. And seeing the human person and the approach makes all of the difference, really. And we, with their permission, share that information with our colleagues in the community so that they get a better, seamless service 7 days a week.
Yeah, excellent.
So you knew at this stage that you really wanted to change things. Where did becoming a member of the House of Lords fit in to that time in your story?
It was complete chance. Tony Blair had brought about reform of the House of Lords, was trying to open it up to bring in people from much more diverse backgrounds. My husband came home with an advert from the newspaper and said, there you are, you've always wanted to change the world. And I thought, oh, I'll find out about it. So I did, and I applied. And I got a telephone call to say that I was on the long list, but I wasn't to tell anyone. Then that I was on the short list, but I wasn't to tell anyone. And then I got invited to just meet a few people. But I shouldn't tell anyone. So I told my husband I was going to a medical meeting in London, came up to London, had a lovely cup of tea, long chat for well over an hour. And as I left the room, I thought, that was the interview. And I had been so naive, I hadn't realised it.
So I can imagine there was a sense of shock, but then you have been able to bring your unique skills to really, really change things. So talk to me about how that happened when you got into the house and what you've been able to do.
First of all, I had to learn how the house works, and I had to find my way around, and that was really difficult and took quite a long time. But then I realised that you only talk about things that you really know about. And of course, the House of Lords is about correcting, if you like, legislation that comes to us, or asking questions of the government where you think things are too naive. And so it was those insights from medicine that I was able to bring in.
In the current NHS, we have clinical teams that change rapidly. The one person often who has continuity and has seen the child day after day is the mother. This amendment was aimed to try to reset the balance and ensure that these parents get listened to. This is not about looking backwards. This is about finding the best way forwards.
So you mentioned that you're still working full-time at this point. What was that like, having one foot in this particular pond, if you like, and also working in the other part of your life?
Oh, my colleagues were wonderfully supportive, and I couldn't have done it without them really helping me. What I did was I did a bit of extra on-call at the weekends to make up for the times when I wasn't around during the week as much. But it's such a privilege to be in a position to be able to do something that it was worth it.
Talk to me about your role as Deputy Speaker. Explain what that involves.
Being Deputy Speaker, I sometimes think it's a bit like being a cricket umpire. You have to know the rules, but you're there to make sure that the House knows where it's going and what's happening. So, for example, with amendments to legislation, you make sure that people know which amendment you're talking about, the House is debating, when you get to the end of it, whether it's approved or not, and moving on to the next one, and taking everything in order so nothing gets missed or overlooked.
What would you say that you're most proud of?
I'm over the moon because we finally got palliative care recognised as a core part of the NHS, and that it must be commissioned by NHS commissioners. Now, previously, it's just been funded by and large by charitable donations, and it's always seemed crazy. You wouldn't have a cake sale so that a woman in obstructed labour can have a caesarean section. So why do you have to have fundraising if somebody's dying and they're distressed? It's completely inappropriate, and now it will become core. That also means that the teams can go into the hospitals, into care homes, into prisons. There are a lot of people who die in prisons now these days because they're an older population. But wherever people are, those teams can go in and provide the input and the support that's needed. It's going to be slow. The teams have got to be grown in areas where there aren't any. But that is really a major step on the road.
I know that that major step on the road, as you describe it, has been 20 years in the making, which strikes me that one of your qualities, as I imagine, shared with many of your colleagues, is that resilience. But I know that your dad also gave you a piece of advice when you were younger that you've really tried to follow.
Yeah. When I was 15 and I was an angry teenager, my father said to me, if you really want to change the world, you've got to get to the top, but not lose your principles on the way. And I've really tried to stick with that. And it's such a privilege to be in a place now where I can still carry on trying to bring about change, and change for the better. When I came here 35 years ago, this had been a nursing home, and my job was to turn it into a modern hospice. And I was the only doctor here, so I was on call 24/7. And I ran education sessions for all the staff. And they all came, even on their days off. And we really changed things and moved it into modern care. That's what I did. What brought you into palliative care?
So I've always had a passion for palliative care. I really believe that people who've got a life-limiting illness, time quite short with their family and their friends, that actually they deserve the best care in the world.
So I found quite often that people had things that they wanted to do in those last days or weeks of life, and we had quite a few people who wanted to get married or have a party.
Yeah, we've as far as possible been able to have birthday parties here at the hospice, even with the pandemic. We'll have all of the family down into the garden, the extended family, and the kitchen will bring down a cake, and all the staff will come down and sing happy birthday, which are always really special occasions because it's often somebody's last birthday.
It's really rewarding to be able to help people find quality of life again when perhaps they've given up. And one of the fantastic things here, apart from the garden, is the view.
Yeah, we are incredibly lucky to have such an amazing view. Night shifts, when you have a sunrise, it's beautiful. And there's been occasions where I've taken family members down who are spending their night with their loved one to go and watch the sunrise together, which is, a lovely moment. Mm.
Sometimes does it feel also like a very big responsibility?
Being a member of the House of Lords is a huge responsibility, and it is the most amazing privilege to be in a position to be able to bring about change and then seeing it through, because yesterday was the beginning, not the end. We finally got palliative care recognised as a core part of the NHS. That was the beginning of a new era to get palliative care everywhere.